Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and today's video is going to be the best Phoenix support build for patch 7.38c. So for starting items, we have a set of tangos, a magic stick, blood grenade, fairy fire, sentry board, and then 2 branches. And kind of just like the silencer build, you could forego the fairy fire, or maybe even the blood grenade. It just depends on the situation, whether you feel like it's going to be good. But obviously every support these days likes to buy blood grenade, likes to start with magic stick. And then fairy fire can be important just to win out those trades. And obviously because you're going to be spending your health early on in the lane as well, this can be very important to just eke out that little bit of extra health to get first blood or to win a trade and that kind of thing. Now, one set of tangos is good at least to start, but sometimes you might even want more tangos. So you might be flying yourself out a lot of tangos, either 1 or 2 more sets throughout the laning stage, unless you're feeding or something like that, because you are going to be using your health as a resource, not just for trading, but also for your spells. So just keep that in mind. This is definitely a hero where you could potentially even start with 2 sets of tangos, and that would be potentially worth it compared to a lot of other heroes. Then for early game items, we're obviously going to be using these 2 pretty quickly, and we want to go straight in for Tranquil Boots as quickly as possible, because using our health as a resource, like I said, is super big on this hero, not just for trading, but for our spells. So getting Tranquil Boots early is going to be very, very good. Some people even get super greedy and just go straight for boots, and then for a sentry board as starting items, and then flying themselves potentially tangos, maybe getting a magic stick as the first item so that they can go right for Tranquil Boots as soon as possible. So just keep that in mind. You're probably going to want to get Tranquil Boots even before finishing a wand, even if you go for stick as a starting item. And then you usually want to get Urn of Shadows just because it's so good on this hero with the damage over time. That just combines those 2 things together to make this hero do insane burn damage when you cast your early ultimates or participate in early team fights. And then you can also go for Veil of Discord, because this is another decent early game item, and it obviously builds into a good late game item. And so combining these 2 early game items is fantastic on the hero, but you don't necessarily have to buy one or the other or both of them before you finish one of them. It's just that they're both very good and very core on the hero, so you're probably going to be buying these every game. It just which one and in which order exactly. I mean, you usually want to finish Urn of Shadows first, but you might actually go for Spirit Vessel before you get the Veil of Discord, just depending on how good the actual Spirit Vessel is and how many regen heroes you're playing against in that specific game. But eventually you will finish this out, and then you will go for the Shivas, and then eventually get Ags. And this is kind of the core build for this hero in almost every single game. And obviously then you have Sentry Wards and stuff like that. You might even have smokes and other things, or dust built in here. And then we have general support items that we can go in different games if we really feel like we need to, with a Glimmer Cape, Force Staff, maybe even Solar Crest, very situational there, or Ghost Scepter if we feel like we can't get our spells off. These are great defensive items. But actually in the situational item here, we have Yule. So this is a standard item that you're going to be buying in a lot of games, but not every game. It looks like people are only buying it like 40% of games. So I would say instead of these general support items, which I have here for most supports, if you really need a defensive item, you probably want to go for Yules. That's just kind of the default one that you could even go before Urn or Veil. I would probably still get the Urn first, with the Tranquil Boots, with finishing the Magic Wand, and then go for Yules if I feel like I really needed it. Just so I have one little, offensive item which builds up those stacks as I participate. Having that early can be very good, and then going for the Yules, then going back for the Veil and the Spirit Vessel, Shiva's Guard, Ags, etc. Then for late game, after we have an inventory that looks something like this, the super luxury items are going to be Ags, and then it's going to be Refresher. Ags Refresher is just the ultimate late game on this hero. Ags is great for obviously saving an ally. Now, there are potential situations where you feel like that's not great and you just want to go for the Refresher. You can totally do that first, but it might be good to get Ags first just because it is so good at giving you that extra hits for the ultimate and to save an ally. So having these 2 is the ultimate late game item, and then giga ultra mega late game, like 60 minutes plus, you can honestly even just forego the boots because you do have dive, go for Scythe or something like that. Or if we don't want to do that, maybe we're even synthing the Ags at some point and then finishing the Boots of Bearing, and then even finishing the Wind Waker. This is like the ultimate late game support Phoenix build, but you're probably not going to get to this point, because if you do get to this point, I don't see how you haven't won the game already. Like, your ultimates are so impactful. If you even just get to Ags or even just get to Refresher, you're just going to be so hard to deal with. You will win fights just by yourself, honestly. So getting to this point, something must be happening. You must be trying to solo carry the game from the 5 position, but this is obviously the ultimate late game item build for the hero, so we want to try to get there, but we're not going to get there in very many games, probably less than 1%. Then lastly, for situational, like I said, we already talked about Yule's Wind Waker. I don't think you have to buy this every single game. You would rather, in a lot of situations, obviously get these more offensive capable items and just rely on being able to press your ultimate, but some games you just can't rely on that, so you do have to buy this Yule's and the Wind Waker. And then some games Lotus Orb can be really good for dispelling, also having help with your team. Maybe you really need Lincolns because you're the only Doom target or something like that. They just know they need to kill you, and having this, also putting it on your allies, can be good. Maybe you just have to have an Aeon Disc because you just feel like you cannot get your ultimate off in a good way no matter where you are. That can be important in some games as well. Maybe there's a, Chronosphere or something else like that, a Storm Spirit diving you or whatever. Then we have other things like Rod of Atos. That could potentially be good on this hero just to give extra lockdown because you don't have any traditional stun as a 5 position. So if your team lacks any kind of lockdown, you can totally get this, and you're obviously not going to go straight for Scythe early. So this can be good, Rod of Atos, just as an early game item instead of maybe these defensive items that you might want to buy. And then the other things are like Radiance is obviously just situational, but this is more of a core item, but maybe like super late you could go it if nobody else has one and you're just like, hey, I already have Ags Refresher, like why don't I just go for this just to do extra burn damage. If somebody needs to buy a Heaven's Halberd, you could potentially do it. It can be good on the hero in some situations. E-Blade can be good, obviously, because it prevents people from right-clicking your egg. You could potentially go Blink, an overwhelming Blink, but you do have the dive, so you don't usually need this. And then this is one of the only heroes, honestly, that can go for Meteor Hammer, which starts off with Kaya, just because you can dive in and use it from a safe distance. But that's kind of like a weird meme thing. Like, it's not something you're going to be using in most games, to be honest. But it is a potential option. It's probably one of the only heroes, if not the only hero right now, that could even buy Meteor Hammer and it not be griefing. So that is on the list, even though you're not going to be buying it in most games. Then in terms of skill build, we want to be going for Fire Spirits level 1 and then Icarus Dive level 2. You could potentially go Icarus Dive first if you get in a sticky situation at the rune or something like that, but ideally you want Fire Spirits because it's so good for harassing, trading, and annoying the enemy when they're trying to last hit. Then level 3, we're going for Fire Spirits. Level 4, Icarus Dive. So we're going to have 2 points in each of these abilities at level 4. Then level 5, Fire Spirits, then our ultimate, and then max out Fire Spirits. Now, this is where it gets a little bit different because usually you would think, okay, we're going to max out Icarus Dive, but now we're actually going to max out Sunray, and that's because we want to have this maxed out for the team fights later in the game after this mid-game timing. And as a 5 position, we're not going to have as many levels, so we want to make sure we have Sunray maxed out as soon as possible when we combine that with our Shard, which we're going to get pretty early on, hopefully for free, but eventually at 20 some minutes at least, we want to get this. And so having this maxed out at that point is going to be very important. We would obviously like to max out Icarus Dive, but we don't want to have Shard and like level 1 Sunray. That can feel really, really bad. Like there's pretty much no point in even having that. So that's why we want to max out Sunray at this point and then max out Icarus Dive last, get those last 2 points. Obviously getting our ultimate whenever we can. And then for talents, we're going to be going for the right talents in every single situation because these are more for the support Phoenix in general, less about the damage and all that kind of stuff. But in general, these are just the better talents right now. So you're going for the right side pretty much every game in almost every scenario. And so that is the Phoenix build for patch 7.38c. As always, guys, if you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.